Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Three words from Shakespeare's Macbeth, spoken by a man watching his life collapse into meaninglessness. For Macbeth, each tomorrow is another step toward the grave, a tedious repetition marching us toward dust and darkness. But Gabrielle Zevin takes that same phrase and flips it. What if tomorrow is not the relentless countdown to death, but the respawn button? What if the architecture of human connection is built not on linear time hurtling toward oblivion, but on the infinite grace of trying again? Nietzsche gave us the thought experiment of eternal return, the idea that you might live this exact life over and over forever, and he asked whether that would be a curse or a blessing. Zevin gives us something gentler and more practical. She gives us the video game, where death is temporary, where you can reload, restart, and rebuild. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow is not the sound of futility. It is the sound of the continue screen, waiting for you to press start. Sam Massour lives in a meat prison. That is the cleanest way to say it. His body, shattered in a childhood car accident, refuses to let him forget that he is made of tissue and bone and nerve endings that scream. Chronic pain is the cruelest teacher because it never stops lecturing. Every step Sam takes is a reminder that the body is not a neutral vessel for the mind. It is a betrayal machine. Descartes tried to split us in two, the thinking thing and the extended thing, mind and body, spirit and meat. For most of us, that split is theoretical, something to debate in a philosophy seminar. For Sam, it is daily life. His mind wants to run, to create, to build entire worlds, but his leg says no. So he does what any rational Cartesian would do. He escapes. He builds a world where the body does not matter, where the only thing that counts is the purity of the code. In the digital space, there is no pain. There is no limp. There is no morphine or surgery or pitying glances. There is only the work, the logic, the clean lines of a reality that does not rot. Gaming is not escapism for Sam in the shallow sense. It is liberation theology. It is the proof that consciousness can exist without the suffering meat. When he codes, he is not running away from his body. He is transcending it. Zevin knows this. She does not write Sam's pain as a metaphor. She writes it as the fundamental problem of embodied existence. And she writes video games as the closest thing we have to a solution. Descartes wanted to prove the soul could exist without the body. Sam just wants to spend a few hours in a world where his leg does not hurt. That is the same project, just more honest. Now look at Sam and Sadie. Everyone wants to know if they are in love. The answer is yes, but not in the way we usually mean it. They do not stare into each other's eyes. They stare at the screen. They do not talk about feelings. They talk about mechanics, about level design, about whether the player should be able to save in the middle of a boss fight. Hannah Arendt wrote about the vita activa, the active life, and she said something most people miss. She said that human beings do not connect most authentically by gazing at each other in some private emotional space. They connect by building a world together. Love is not what happens when two people retreat into intimacy. Love is what happens when two people create something that exists outside of themselves, something durable and real that will outlast their feelings. A table, a law, a piece of music. For Sam and Sadie, it is a game. The game is the third entity. It is the thing they both look at, the thing they both build, and in building it, they build each other. This is why their collaboration is so combustible and so essential. When they are working together, they are not just making software. They are making a shared reality, a space that belongs to both of them and to neither of them. When they stop working together, they lose that world, and in losing the world, they lose each other. This is the tragedy that runs underneath the whole book. They think the work is secondary to the relationship, that they can step away from creation and still have what they had. But Arendt would tell them no. The work is not the byproduct of love. The work is the structure that makes love possible. When you stop building the world together, you stop being together in any meaningful sense. You become two isolated consciousnesses again, floating in private suffering. Zevin shows us this with almost painful clarity. Every time Sam and Sadie try to connect without the work, they fail. Every time they sit down to code together, they come alive. The game is not a distraction from their love. The game is their love made visible. Then there is Marx. Marx Watanabe, the boy who loves Sam, the man who becomes the infrastructure that holds everything together. In a book full of main characters, Marx chooses to be a supporting role. In a world obsessed with protagonists, he becomes the NPC, the non-player character, the one who exists to make someone else's quest easier. And Zevin treats this not as weakness, but as a kind of ethical genius. Emmanuel Levinas spent his life thinking about the other, about what we owe to the face that appears before us. He said that ethics begins not with rights or rules, but with the moment you recognize that another person's suffering makes a claim on you. The highest form of existence, for Levinas, is not self-actualization or personal glory. It is being available, being the soil in which someone else can grow. Marx understands this without ever reading a word of philosophy. He loves Sam not by demanding that Sam love him back in the same way, but by building a life where Sam can flourish. He produces their games. He manages the business. He makes sure people eat and sleep and do not destroy themselves. He is the person who says, "I will carry the weight so you can run." And for a long time, Sam does not even see it. Sam takes Marx for granted because, in a culture that worships the visionary genius, the person who does the grunt work is invisible. But Zevin sees him. She makes Marx the moral center of the book because she knows that the world is not held together by brilliance. It is held together by the people who show up, who do the dishes, who ask if you are okay, who love you not because you are special, but because you are there. Marx is proof that the ultimate act of love is not passion, it is presence. And when Marx dies, the entire structure collapses, because it turns out he was not a supporting character, he was the foundation. You do not notice the foundation until it is gone. If these connections are helping you see your own world differently, subscribe and join us. It helps this space grow. Now, back to the memory of it all. Henri Bergson had a problem with clocks. He said that mechanical time, the kind we measure with ticks and tocks, is a lie. Real time, duration, is not a series of discrete moments. It is a continuous flow, a stream of consciousness that cannot be chopped into pieces. The past does not disappear, it accumulates. It becomes part of you, shapes you, weighs you down, or lifts you up. Human beings do not experience time the way a clock does. We experience it as memory, as the weight of everything that has ever happened to us carried forward into this moment. Video games, on the other hand, run on mechanical time. You can save your progress, you can reload, you can go back to the moment before you made the terrible choice and try again. The mistake is deleted, the timeline is overwritten. Bergson would say this is a fantasy, a beautiful and terrible lie. In real life, there are no save files. You cannot reload the morning before the accident. You cannot go back to the conversation before you said the thing that broke everything. The file is corrupted, and you still have to play. Zevin knows this. She fills her book with moments that cannot be undone. Sam's injury, the fight that splits him and Sadie apart for years, Marx's death. These are not bugs to be patched. They are the game. And the question is not whether you can reload a clean save. The question is whether you can learn to keep playing with a corrupted file. Forgiveness, in this framework, is not about erasing the past. It is about integrating it. It is about saying, yes, this happened, yes, it hurt, yes, it changed everything, and I am still here. Sam and Sadie hurt each other over and over, and they cannot undo it. But they can choose, again and again, to keep building. That is what the title means. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Not the erasure of yesterday, but the choice to continue despite it. Bergson said that duration is irreversible, that we are always carrying the full weight of our past. Zevin says yes, and that weight is not a curse. It is the proof that we lived, that we mattered, that the choices were real. The tragedy is not that we cannot reload. The tragedy is that some people stop playing because they think the corrupted file means the game is over. It does not. It just means the game is harder and more real and more worth finishing. Now we arrive at the largest question: why play at all? If life is pain, if the body fails, if love is conditional, if memory is a wound that never heals, why press start? Why not just let the continue screen time out and fade to black? Zevin's answer is not sentimental, but it is unshakable. To play is to hope. Not hope in the sense of a specific outcome, not hope that things will get better or that the pain will stop. Hope in the more radical sense. Hope as the refusal to accept that the current state is the final state. Play is the assertion that change is possible, that you can build something new, that the next iteration might reveal something you did not see before. This is why games matter in the book. They are not distractions. They are rehearsals for living. Every time you start a new game, you are saying, I believe something can happen here. I believe I can affect this world. I believe my choices matter. And yes, most games are small and contained and ultimately trivial, but the structure, the grammar of play, teaches you how to approach the bigger, scarier game. Life is messier than any code. There are no clear win conditions. The rules change mid-play. Other players can hurt you in ways the game never warned you about, but the alternative to playing is withdrawal, silence, the slow erasure of self. Sam withdraws after Marks dies. He stops making games, he stops talking to Sadie, he tries to let the continue screen time out, and Zevin shows us what that looks like. It looks like death by 1,000 subtractions. Not the dramatic death of a final boss fight, but the grey death of stopping, of deciding that the world is too broken to bother. Sadie will not let him. She shows up. She hands him a controller, metaphorically and maybe literally. She says, "We are not done. There is another game to make. There is another tomorrow." And that is the architecture of connection Zevin is building. We do not save each other with grand gestures. We save each other by refusing to let the other one stop playing, by saying, I know you are tired. I know it hurts. I know the file is corrupted. But look, there is still a screen. There is still a start button. Press it. Let us see what happens next. The respawn is not a denial of death. It is a reimagining of it. In the linear model, death is the end, the final shutdown, the place where meaning collapses. But in the game, death is information. You died here. That means something. You learned where the trap is. You learned that this strategy does not work. You come back with new knowledge. The respawn is the philosophical grace that lets you carry forward what you learned without being erased by the failure. Zevin gives this to her characters again and again. Sam respawns after the accident, after the surgeries, after the fights with Sadie. Sadie respawns after betrayal, after loss, after the years in the wilderness. Marks respawns every time someone takes him for granted, every time his contributions are ignored, until he does not, and we learn what it means to lose someone who cannot come back. The book is structured like a long game with multiple lives. You use them all. You die in stupid ways and noble ways and unfair ways. And the point is not to avoid dying. The point is to keep playing long enough that the deaths start to mean something, that the pattern emerges, that you see the shape of the thing you are building. Shakespeare's Macbeth ends in despair because he sees life as a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Zevin sees the same chaos, the same suffering, the same arbitrary cruelty, and says, yes, and we can still make something. The something does not have to be perfect. It does not have to last forever. It just has to be made with care, with attention, with the knowledge that someone else might play it and feel less alone. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Each one is an invitation, not a threat, not a burden, but a door. You can walk through it, or you can sit down and wait for the screen to go dark. Zevin knows which choice leads to life. She knows because she has written a book about people who choose the door, who choose the work, who choose each other even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when the code does not compile and the body screams and the friend is gone. They keep building, and in the building, they become real, not in spite of the mess, but through it. The game is not the escape from life. The game is the model for how to live, with intention, with creativity, with the understanding that failure is not the opposite of success, but the road to it. With the grace to respawn, to say, that did not work, let me try again, and again, and again, until the trying itself becomes the point, until the play itself becomes the meaning, until you realize that you were never supposed to win. You were supposed to play well, to play with others, to play until you cannot anymore, and then to leave behind something playable for the next person. That is the architecture. That is the connection. That is the warm realism that Zevin offers. Not everything is fixable. Not everyone comes back. But the game is still running, and you still have hands, and there is still a tomorrow waiting to be built.